Hey, welcome back, peeps. This is Derek Stewart from the DC Stewart Show Podcast featuring Isaiah and Najee. It is a Saturday, October 11th, 2025, and it is a college football Saturday packed full of great games. We're currently watching a game right now between Alabama and Missouri. This one's a tight one, but the biggest game is coming up in about maybe 45 minutes from now, where we're going to have University of Texas Longhorns versus the Oklahoma Sooners, called the Red River Rivalry. And that is a super, super big game. They play it in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl. And it's just a tradition between the two schools, between the two states. But in the meantime, we have a special guest with us today, again, because Isaiah and Najee, they're away on assignment. So they're not going to be joining us today. However, I have a special guest, TJ, and TJ joined us about 3 weeks ago, and he was able to come on board. And, we're treating TJ like he's one of our own here because, he's a special kind of guy to me as far as his knowledge when it comes to football and generally all sports. So welcome, TJ. How's it going today? How you doing? How's your weekend so far?
Thank you. It's going okay. A lot of stress. I'm a Texas Longhorn fan, as if you're watching, you can see. I'm a Texas Longhorn fan. Usually this day brings me a lot of butterflies, but it feels like this year, at least on the Texas side, at least, that our fans are not. I think our fans are kind of coming in expecting the worst out of this game. So the vibes are a little weird, but otherwise things are good, and hopefully I'm still in the jovial mood and a happy mood after this game is over.
Absolutely, absolutely. This game is like it's a so special game because the state of Oklahoma sits right up on the top of the state of Texas. And the state of Texas, to me, is one of the largest states in the country, if not the largest. I think it's between Texas and California. And I want to say Texas has more expansion land than California does, because California is sitting on a peninsula kind of setup on the Pacific Ocean. But Texas is just nothing but bulk of land. I crossed Texas before driving, and it was quite a task trying to get across that state. Sometimes it takes 2 days. Sometimes it can take 3 days, depending on how fast you're going and how much time you have to burn. So in the meantime, once again, we're here, and TJ and I, we're going to be going over some pregame dynamics between this game with Texas and Oklahoma. Since these teams match up so well, I would say that I predict, and I'm going to go ahead and just say it's going to be a tight game because Texas is not going to lay down. Texas is currently 3-2 as we speak. They lost a game last week against Florida, which Florida's defense showed up and they just couldn't move the ball. TJ made a good point when we spoke last time that Texas doesn't seem to have a running game, and that's something that Texas has got to address. And they have to address it fast if they want to even have a minuscule chance of being, eligible to be in that 12-game playoff rotation, although a lot of people are already counting them out. I won't count them out yet. So what do you think about some of the matchups? Because it looks like Texas right now leads the series 64-51 and 5 all time, with detailed breakdowns of dominance some years it's a blowout, some years it's tight. So tell us a little bit about what you know about this rivalry, this Red River Rivalry, TJ.
There's kind of nothing like it. For those who don't know, the way it's set up is that the game takes place in Dallas, which is kind of the major city that's in the middle of Oklahoma's campus and our campus, which is in Austin. So the game takes place in Texas, obviously, but it's kind of equidistant between the two campuses, and it's totally split. It's a 50-50 split. It happens at the Texas State Fair every year out there in Dallas, but basically the State Fair that day is split. We used to play this game early in the morning, so we used to play this game at 11 Central, but now it's been 2:30 for the last couple of years, which feels a little weird. But basically, the team that wins gets to take over the fair. So all the losing team, your team loses in the fair, you got to leave the stadium and you got to leave the fair basically, and it'll be full of Orange fans if Texas wins and full of Red fans or Crimson fans, I guess, if Oklahoma wins. And the stadium's literally split 50-50, and it's there's really no other college football rivalry game that's quite like it for that reason. Obviously, most of the big time rivalry games, the Michigan, Ohio States, the Georgia, Alabamas, they're going to each other's campuses to play these games. They're not playing these games at a neutral location. I've been a couple times. It's always great. It seems like it's always a close game. And the night before, I don't even know if they still do this, but when I was in college, we used to go down to what's called the West End in Dallas. And basically, the night before the game, it'd be overrun with Texas and OU fans, and fans would be yelling at each other. It'd be fun times. But going into this game, obviously the biggest news is whether or not Oklahoma's quarterback is going to play John Mateer. He is warming up right now. I think they just went back to the locker room to see if he's going to actually put pads on, because sometimes you go out there and you warm up, but then you don't come back out with the pads on. But I think they took him off the injury report today, so I think he's definitely going to play. He looks like he's got some zip on the ball and warm up, so he's going to play. I think the biggest matchup, I think this comes down to Texas's defense. Last week against Florida, our offense looked bad, but our offenses kind of looked bad in every game. But our defense looked bad as well last week, and that was the first time we've seen our defense look like that. Now, we were down our top corner, but I don't think that accounts for how soft we were in the middle. I will say that Florida is a better running team than Oklahoma. Oklahoma kind of struggles to run the ball too, and they've got their own offensive line issues. So the teams are a bit similar in that regard. Where they're not similar is their quarterback play. And we'll see what Mateer looks like today. But Mateer has looked great. He's been great for Oklahoma. Not perfect, but he's been great, far better than Arch has been, and their offense has been far better than ours. And their defense really hasn't shown a sign of getting bullied by anybody. I think this game comes down to the Texas defense. If they don't show up, Texas is going to lose the ball game. If they do show up, it'll be a kind of a rock fight, and we'll see how healthy Mateer is. But if I'm Texas, you have to impact that kid's hand as his throwing hand. Every QB hit has to involve some action going towards his hand. You got to put your hand up in his face. You got to be trying to slap the hand down. And God forbid he tries a QB run, which is a part of his game. I don't know how much they're going to use the QB run just because of his hand. We know that he can throw because he's throwing in warm-ups, but can he take contact on that hand? That's the question that needs to be answered. But I would say right now, the matchups are in favor of Oklahoma because their defense is just really, really good. And the Texas defense, which some thought might be really good, maybe is not based on what happened last week. So I think it's going to be, like you said, a close, stressful game. See, it kind of always is. But I feel like Oklahoma was favored in this game. Texas was originally favored. Oklahoma came into the week favored, and now Texas is favored again. Which is weird because Mateer's going to play. So Vegas is all over the place with the line. There's kind of been 1.5 going both ways all week. So it should be a close game. I would say the smart money is probably to put your money on Oklahoma, but you never know what Mateer's going to look like. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the details of Mateer's injury on his thumb, on his throwing hand, which is his throwing arm. And it looks like he had a small, clean break in the thumb, and they have inserted pins inside of that thumb to try to secure, to make sure the bone completely readjusts to the other portion of his bone in his finger. So it's not anything of a compound type of fracture where they had to go in and they had to do a whole bunch of extra extensive stuff to his thumb. I think he's going to be fine. I do agree with you. I think he's going to play today. And I think he's going to be effective in the sense where Texas is going to have someone spying him constantly, because if they don't, he might start running on them, and they would have to make a quick adjustment to that at that point in time instead of game planning for him. And I'm pretty sure Texas's defensive coordinator game planned for him this week, because I know how critical it is that he does play today for Oklahoma in order to give them the best chance to win. I really do believe that. But I believe some of the things are going to come down to it is going to be strategy. So you have Steve Sarkisian, who's the head coach of Texas. He's done a fantastic job over especially the past 2 years, bringing his team back to respectability in the sense that they are vying for national championships now, as opposed to how they were 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago before he got there. One of the biggest things is Sarkis is going to have to call a really tight, hardcore game today. He's going to have to, because he's going up against Brent Venables, who's the defensive coach. Well, he was a defensive coach. He's the head coach of Oklahoma right now, but he was a defensive coordinator for Clemson for quite some time. And then he took over Oklahoma's program, and he is a defensive-minded coach. So he's going to have a lot of input in how Oklahoma's defense reacts to some of the things Texas is going to be doing today. And this game is electrifying. I would say this game is right up there with all of the massive rivalries, the Alabama Auburns, the Florida Georgias, the Miami Florida States, the Michigan Ohio States. It's rivalries, and these rivalries go way, way back. And it's going to only get better over the next several years because of the type of athletes that these programs are securing. One of the things I do want to say is where Texas might have the edges is going to be explosive plays today. I think their explosiveness is going to be critical today. And I think Arch Manning has to do some things today to get that monkey off his back and silence the critics. What do you think about that, TJ?
I totally agree. Obviously, Arch, everybody talks about Arch, and he hasn't been great by any stretch of the imagination. But I think the real sore thumb, no pun intended, on the Texas offense is the offensive line. It's just not operating very well. And if you look at the Florida game, we couldn't impact. Lagway was hurt. He was actually limping through the game.
I saw that.
And Texas barely hit the guy because they just ran quick game all game. They were just getting the ball out fast, getting the ball out quick. Texas was not doing that. And I think what Sark really has to do today is find a way to get Arch some confidence throws and play with the quick game, as opposed to waiting for these long developing deep routes down the field where we don't really have time for that. Oklahoma's offensive or defensive line is very good, extremely good. They got one of the best pass rushers in the country on that line. And Brent Venables, like you said, is very good at scheming it up so that you don't know who's coming pre-snap. And Arch struggled last week with Florida, who was doing some exotic stuff with the
some of the looks, right? Some of the defensive looks that they gave.
But they were really just bringing 4. And if Oklahoma could get pressure with 4 like Florida did, the game is over.
Right.
So Texas needs to make sure, A, play in the quick game, give Arch some quick reads to make, and then B, you cannot let Oklahoma impact your quarterback with 4. Sometimes they're going to bring 5 or 6, and that you got a hot read to get the ball out. But if they can impact Arch Manning today with 4, good luck. Texas is going to score very many points. And Texas needs to kind of drag this game into the dirt a bit, because I think that Mateer, if he looks anything like himself, we're assuming that, then they could put up points easier than Texas can put up points. And I think you have to try to way to help Arch Manning out. And he can silence the doubters today by playing. I thought he played okay last week. I
did too. I didn't think he played really horrible. I thought he played fairly okay based on the circumstances that they were up against Florida. It's in a swamp, And these SEC games are
a legend now.
Yes.
Make yourself. This is the game these guys say, okay, we've gone through these first 5 games. People are talking. People are saying whatever the hell they want to say. If I go out there and beat Oklahoma, even if I don't play great, we're going to silence that noise a little bit, and we can regroup as a team. And Texas still hasn't beat a P4 team this year yet. So if you lose this game, the season's over.
If they lose this game, they're out of it for sure. I mean, I'm not 100% whether they're still in it or not, based on how the SEC, all of these teams are going to fall in place at the end of the year. But one thing I will say, if they win today and they win out the rest of the year, I think they have a pretty decent chance to get in there, possibly, based on if they can get to and knock off some of these teams in the SEC West, the Mississippis of the world and the Alabamas of the world and all of those type of teams. They're going to have to bump those teams off. And the LSUs, of course, because LSU, they had a lot of promise, and now look at them. I mean, they're not looking like they're in it either. I mean, so it's a very tough conference to play in. You got Texas A&M still in it. You got several other teams that's coming in. Mississippi State, they're coming. They're coming. I mean, because
Ole Miss is undefeated,
and
they're
Ole
losing
Miss is
right now.
undefeated with
Down
Lane
by
Kiffin.
4 to Washington State. They're losing right now to Washington State at home. They're down by 4 heading to the fourth quarter. I don't know what's going on with Ole Miss today. They were supposed to win this game by 20-something points, but they've been really struggling to move the ball. And I think it goes towards what you're saying, whereas the SEC, we might not have a dominant team in the SEC like we've seen. Like there's some teams in the Big Ten who are just heads and shoulders better than the other teams, and we could see it. We can see that Oregon and Ohio State are just better than the other teams in the Big Ten.
Exactly.
Right? We can see that. There's not quite a team like that in the SEC. If you're talking about your Bama, your Georgia, those teams aren't that far apart. You talked about Ole Miss, who knows what that means. They already beat LSU. Who knows if they're going to pull this out and win today? You got a huge game in the SEC between Florida and Texas A&M. Texas A&M still undefeated, but and they're playing yet another home game, the third straight conference home game. So they got to get that win because the rest of the schedule doesn't get any easier. So the SEC, you're right, it's just kind of stacked. So we don't really know how it's going to play out. But every game in the SEC, you got to get out there and you got to. The other team is going to try to push you because there are no slouches in the conference other than maybe Kentucky. There aren't really any slouches in the conference who you could just guarantee that you're going to walk into their stadium and kick their ass. You know, there isn't a lot of that in the SEC. Maybe I'll give you Kentucky. Maybe I'll give you Arkansas. It depends. We haven't really seen their new coaching staff yet. We haven't seen the Bob Petrino era yet because they just fired their coach a couple weeks ago. But they play Tennessee today. Who knows? Maybe they'll push Tennessee. Maybe, the SEC is a very loaded conference. So if you're Texas, you really can't afford to lose another SEC game, let alone to your most hated rival. Obviously, everything's on the line for Texas, and Steve Sarkisian's got to call the game like everything is on the line, and I'm sure you understand.
Absolutely. He has to call a game, and like you said earlier, he's got to make this game. He's got to get Arch some confidence at the very beginning, and Arch can run with the ball. So the biggest thing is that's a dynamic for Texas. I mean, Texas has that equal threat as well as Oklahoma has with Mateer, and this is going to be a defensive battle. I got a feeling because Texas has got one of the best defenses in college football, as well as Oklahoma. Right now, I was looking at some of the data and some of the analytics when it came down to this, and basically, right now it looks like Oklahoma has the edge, in especially when it comes to defense. Michael Hawkins Jr., who was a backup quarterback for OU, played in place of Mateer while Mateer was out, and he did a fairly good job while he was in there as well. So if Mateer cannot go today, which I know he will, or if he can't finish the game today, I know Hawkins Jr. will come in there and he'll take it from there and still add a special dynamic to what Oklahoma is doing. One of the let me ask you this, TJ, which is the most memorable rivalry in this game, in this series that you can remember back in the time of which players, when the players were at Texas and when the players was at Oklahoma? What's your most memorable moment?
I think what sticks out to me the most is that Vince Young and Mac Brown, before we won our national championship in 2005, really struggled with OU. Even when we were the quote unquote better team or things looked better for us, Mac Brown could not beat OU for a number of years. And in today's world, he probably gets fired before he ever wins that national championship because he had an Oklahoma problem. And in those days, Oklahoma just always had our number. I think the players that stand out the most are Adrian Peterson because he's from Texas and how good he was. The one that sticks out the most recently is when Caleb Williams came in as a true freshman. He wasn't even the starter yet. The starter, but I don't even remember who the starter was. Was it Jalen Hurts? It wasn't Hurts. It was somebody else. But the starter was no, it wasn't. It was the kid for the Saints. It was who was the starting quarterback for the Saints? That's who the starter was.
The quarterback for the Saints?
Yeah, the starting quarterback for the Saints right now had transferred to Oklahoma or started at Oklahoma, and he started the game. He started the year and he started the Texas OU game. Mm-hmm. We were destroying them at halftime. I think we were up 28 points. This is in 2022, maybe 21. Texas is up huge at halftime. They put in Caleb right before halftime. Caleb scores a long touchdown before halftime to get the game relatively close, and then they walked us down in the second half because we had no answer for Caleb Williams. And that was kind of the country's introduction to Caleb Williams. This is what Caleb Williams was a freshman. Mm-hmm. So, this is during Lincoln Riley's tenure, obviously, because Lincoln Riley that year took him and left. He took Caleb Williams and left and went to USC. But that year, I remember how devastating that was because we were destroying them at halftime. And they had nothing. They couldn't move the ball at all with that kid who now is a starting quarterback for the Saints.
Yeah, you're talking about Spencer Rattler. Rattler. He was a starting quarterback.
Rattler was their starter.
Right.
And after that, they actually lost both of them because Rattler left to South Carolina, and then also obviously Caleb left to USC, so they lost both of them. But they beat Texas that year. Oh my God, Pitt! I think Florida State might lose this game. They're down 3 with 4 minutes left. Pitt just had a fumble that bounced around about 5 times and picked it back up. They got the ball with 4 minutes left. Yikes, Florida State. But it stands up that Colt McCoy was great in this game. The Colt McCoy era, we were great in this game, but Oklahoma was really good. Oklahoma has actually been really good kind of my whole life, except for last year when they were 6-7, and we beat them up last year. But if Michael Hawkins actually played in this game last year because they benched Jackson Arnold last year. So
I remember when they benched Jackson Arnold.
They benched Jackson Arnold, and so Michael Hawkins actually started this game last year, and he couldn't move the ball in Texas at all. We beat them by a lot last year. So they're coming into this game with blood. They see blood in the water because Texas already has 2 losses and is unranked right now. But also, we really got after them last year, and so I'm sure they're looking to get that lick back. But always, 98% of the time, it feels like this game is a game that's won in the fourth quarter, and the game is really dictated by who can run the ball more. Both teams really struggle to run the ball. They have quarterbacks who can run the ball, but they don't really have a traditional hand the ball off to a running back run game that has been proven yet. The team that can establish that their running backs can run the ball, Texas had 11 running back carries or 12 running back carries last week for about 15 yards. So that's obviously extremely bad. Whichever one of these teams can establish a run, not just with their QB, especially with Oklahoma, they've got to really be careful with the QB run because we don't know what Mateer's hand looks like in terms of taking contact. So I would imagine they try to limit the QB run. The team that can run the ball with their running backs the best will end up winning this game. And I have no idea which team that's going to be because both of the teams haven't really shown us that they can do that consistently. Like, we haven't seen that they can do that. We'll see. But the team who can run the ball more with their running back stable and with that offensive line is going to win this ball game. And unfortunately, because Oklahoma has a better offensive line than us, although only slightly in my opinion, I think that they'll be able to run the ball better between the tackles than we will be.
So, TJ, let me ask you, where did Texas go south? Because they were preseason, they were ranked number 1, and Ohio State was under them. Where do you think they hit that snag at? I mean, where did against Ohio State, or do you think it was more so Florida that kind of snapped it? Created.
I think you saw the problems against Ohio State, but now we see that Ohio State's defense is probably the best defense in the nation. I mean, I think today is the first time they've given up double digits. Illinois scored 10 points on them. That's the first time they've given up double digits. And the game is 34-10. So it's not like those points matter. But Ohio State's defense is easily the best defense in the country. I think Miami's defense is probably second or third best in the country. But Ohio State's got the best defense in the country. So it was easy for us to say, well, it's Arch's first road start, and it's probably the best defense in the country. We could write that off. But I think where it went south is when you're playing the UTEPs and the Sam Houston States of the world before you play Florida, and the offense just didn't look good. That's when everybody realized this offense is bad. And going into the season, you lose 4 starting offensive linemen. That's always something that's always like that could be bad. If the attrition is not working right and those guys behind them aren't developing, that can go bad. We're thinking about the wide receiver core. We lost Matthew Golden, who was phenomenal for us last year. Now plays for the Green Bay Packers, having a good season for the Green Bay Packers. You lost 2 running backs. You had a running back tear his ACL last year. So the running back room, you didn't know what that would look like either. And now this year it's kind of been hampered with injuries and just been bad. So I think all the things going into the season that we were thinking of, maybe if Arch is the only question, I think this offense would be pretty good. Unfortunately, Arch was nowhere near the only question. He's been okay. He's been mediocre in my opinion, but that wide receiver room doesn't look great so far. The running back room looks like a disaster so far, and the offensive line is one of the worst offensive lines that I've seen at Texas in the last, and let's say in the Steve Sarkisian era, because unfortunately we had a lot of bad offensive lines under Tom Herman as well. This offensive line looks extremely bad. So I think once the country started to see the Texas offense could not move the ball, I think that's where it went bad. And the weird thing is Texas offense wasn't great against Florida. It was actually very bad against Florida. But Arch had 300 of I think we had 335 yards. Arch had 300 of those yards. I mean, he was out there by himself. So I like you were watching the game like I'm watching the game, and you can see, okay, this kid's not losing them the game, but he's also not winning them the game. And I just don't think that Arch Manning is at a place in his development where he could drive the bus if nobody else is trying to help him drop the bus. And so today, if Texas is going to win, somebody else on that offense is going to step up, because I expect Arch to make some plays in this game. I expect Arch to turn the ball over a couple of times in this game. Who's going to step up in that wide receiver core? Who's going to step up on that offensive line? Who's going to step up in that running back room that's going to say, you're going to look back and say, wow, this running back ran for 78 yards in this game and got a couple first downs, or this receiver had 85 receiving yards and a touchdown. It's going to be that kind of thing. You're going to have to see who's going to step up, and not to break in, but Florida State's now down 10 with 2 minutes left.
I'm looking at that. Since you mentioned that, I went to the college scoreboard because that doesn't look good at all. I mean, Florida State was kind of slated to be at the top of the ACC this year, and if they lose this one, this is another conference game. This is a conference game, so they will be down 2. They would lose 2 in the conference. I don't think they can get there. I think this ends it for them. If they can't turn this around, and they're down 10 points right now, it's not going to be pretty for Mike Norvell. It's not going to be pretty.
The weird thing is, going into the season, none of us really knew what to expect because they had so many transfers, and last year obviously was an abject disaster. So we had no idea what the team's going to look like. Then you beat Alabama, and then that actually puts the expectations back to where the Florida State fans want.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. We've got a good team now. We're going to go compete for the ACC, and then you get into the ACC, and now you're dropping teams. Now you're losing to Pitt, who started a true freshman at quarterback today. Now, all of a sudden, I think you're right. I think things are going to go bad for Norvell now. And it's just crazy how the sport works, because a month ago, the guy was on cloud 9 again, and people saying, oh, my God, Florida State's back. And now you drop 2 in the ACC, and now all of a sudden it's like, woof, Florida State might be closer to a 7-5 team than they will be contending for the ACC.
That's the way it's looking right now. It looks that if they drop this game, that's the way it's going to be looking for them. I don't see them.
Third loss in the conference. They're already 0-2. They lost to Miami. They would have lost to Pitt, and then they lost to, I don't remember who the third loss is to. Who'd they play last week? Whoever they played last week.
I can check it right quick.
Man, going 0-3 in the conference after beating Alabama. Who could have guessed something?
Well, I think a lot of teams have figured it out in terms of defensive schemes against Tommy Castellanos, his running ability and his ability to throw on the run, and the RPOs and those type of things. I think people have figured that out so far. Virginia kind of exposed it, then Miami opened it completely up to expose it. And
West Virginia, that's who beat them. Oof.
Yeah, it looks like they're 3-2, 0-2 in the ACC right now. Pitt's QB, Henschel, has got 321 passing yards versus Castellanos 172 passing yards, and that's a big discrepancy right there in terms, of that, because I don't even see Castellanos numbers in the rushing yards at all. So it doesn't look like, unless, he's just having a really off day, it's not looking good for Florida State right now. But I do have an additional question to ask you about Arch. Do you think, honestly, from the bottom of your heart, that Arch is overrated? I mean, is he overrated? Was he overrated by a lot of the pundits who started the season, knowing he was coming in and they were under the assumption that he was going to light it up?
What 100%, and there's no other answer to give to that, because people were saying this guy's going to be QB1 in this draft, and this guy's going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. He is nowhere near that. Now, is that his fault? No, but he's nowhere near that level in terms of his development. He's just not there yet. His reads are not there yet. He's not hitting layups. Like, even when he has time and he's got layups, he's throwing the ball into the dirt at times. Like, he is not there. I am not in the camp that's saying, like, this guy's going to be a bust or this guy's not going to be good. I'm actually the opposite. I've actually seen enough from him to where I feel like he's going to be good, but it ain't going to happen yet. And I think it won't happen towards the end of the year, maybe even into next year, because he's just not there yet in his development. and his development isn't being helped by what's around him. And that is, I lay all that at the feet of Steve Sarkisian. Unfortunately, Steve Sarkisian is one of the only coaches in the country who still calls his own plays. Another one down there in Florida who might have saved his job, at least temporarily, last week by beating Sark. There are very few coaches now that are calling their own plays. And it seems like every year we lose a coach who's calling his own plays because he's forced to give up that duty to something else. And if the offensive line evaluations and in the running back evaluations and the wide receiver evaluations are as bad as they look right now, I think it may help Steve Sarkisian to let somebody else call the plays, and then he can focus more on the overall CEO role, because there's been some big misses on this offense in terms of kids that were highly rated. That Dallas Wilson kid, that was his first start ever last week, and he destroyed Texas. He's a 5-star wide receiver that Texas tried to go get when he decommitted from Oregon. Texas signed 2 other 5-star receivers in that class. Those guys had barely touched the field. So either you went and paid the wrong 5 stars, or you're not developing those guys in that short amount of time. Whereas Dallas Wilson clearly was ready to go. Like he's coming off of an injury. He's never played a game before, and he's just destroying the Texas secondary. That's a kid who was ready to get on the field. You see this Daniels kid at Miami. That kid's a 3-star recruit. That kid's a 3-star recruit. He looks like one of the best wide receivers.
CJ Daniels, yes.
CJ, that kid's a 3-star recruit. Texas has 10 stars, I think 15 stars of wide receivers who are true freshmen that have literally barely touched the field. So I think you got to clean some of that stuff up. It's not just about going out and getting a 5-star. You need to pay the right 5 stars. And if you really needed an explosive guy on that offense, or you needed more offensive linemen, you should have hit the portal, because Texas didn't sign any offensive linemen in the portal. And one of the offensive linemen that they thought about in the portal, or at least were linked to, is literally starting for Oregon right now. And Oregon's got one of the best offensive lines in the country statistically. So if Steve Sarkisian is going to focus more on the personnel stuff and the overall development of some of these players who are not yet playing, and less on the actual scheming and play calling, I think that might be something that you're hearing a lot of people talking about. If Texas loses this game, look for people in the media and look for Texas fans to be talking about Steve Sarkisian no longer calling his own plays.
Right. That's what I'm thinking as well. I was looking at some more historical data here about the Red River Rivalry. It looks like Barry Switzer's record was 9 wins, 5 losses, and 2 ties when he was Oklahoma's coach. Which coach do you think dominated that series? Was it Darrell Royal? Was it Fred Akers? Or was it, Mac Brown? I'm assuming that it was between Darrell Royal and Fred Akers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Darrell Royal. It definitely is not Mac Brown. I mean, he couldn't. You remember when how Harbaugh was struggling at Michigan? They almost fired him. They make him take a pay cut. This is all before he won the national championship. He really had an Ohio State problem. That's what it was like in the Mac Brown era. The Mac Brown era was happening when I was in college, and we would be good every year. And then every year you just expect, no matter what people think going into the game, that Texas was going to lose to OU in those times. And it really wasn't until that season where Vince Young where Vince Young was in his second year as a starter and we went undefeated, that we finally kind of broke the OU curse. But it was that was probably one of the most stressful eras of the rivalry. And it just, even being on campus, it was clear that we were always nervous about the Oklahoma game, because it was always a mess. It was always, they'd always find a way to beat us in the end in a close game. Texas has really had we've beaten Venables, I think, twice, and he's beaten us once. I know he's only beaten us once. I think we beat him 2 or 3 times.
He had Dylan Gabriel that year. He beat him once, because I remember Dylan Gabriel had a breakout game that game. I watched that whole game from start to finish.
They went and scored on the last possession of the game. Yep, that's how they beat us. It seems like when we lose to Oklahoma, it's like that. It's usually like, oh my God, they got the ball last and they're going to go score. Versus, we at the last couple of years, I think a couple of years ago, we won 49-0. They've had they like, the reason why Venables, people are saying Venables, like, why would you be trying to play this kid? What if he gets hurt again? You're risking your season. Venables needs to get the Texas monkey off his back. Like, he has not been great against Texas, other than that one game that we just talked about. And last year they went 6-7, and people were talking about his job. So he doesn't really have the capacity to just say, well, we'll just put Michael Hawkins on there and see what happens. We saw what Michael Hawkins did against Texas last year. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty at all. So
Right.
his job's on the line, even though his team's undefeated right now. Who knows that's the Oklahoma's schedule is legitimately insane. They play one of the hardest schedules in the country, so they can't really afford to just not put him out there if he's healthy for a game. So I understand why they're taking the risk. And if you're the Texas defense, you need to play very physically with him and impact him and make them pay for the fact that they put him out there maybe before he's ready.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, and they're warming up right now. It looks like both teams are warming up for this game to start shortly. And once the game starts,
they just hit a long touchdown too. They're only down 3.
Yeah, I was just looking at the score from that one, and I'm going to pull it back up, and they just scored, so they're down 3 points now.
A long touchdown throw from Castellanos. Pitt might win this game. Pitt has done so many things to lose this ball game. I just can't believe the way that they're playing, and they might get this win. But man, I just feel like Pitt has done so many things. You legitimately just cannot give up a deep shot in that situation. You need to. That's the one play that can beat you in this situation. You need to let him dink and dunk his way down the field, and they get beat over the top. There's a minute 45 left now. And Florida State's only got 1 timeout, so we'll see if they onside kick here. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Pitt is another one of those kind of unique teams that we don't hear a lot about now, but it looks as though that they can be somewhat of a threat in the ACC. But right now, the ACC is dominated by Miami, and we'll see when they actually come up against Georgia Tech, because I don't think they play Georgia Tech in the regular season. So they'll definitely have to meet Georgia Tech in the ACC championship. Because
don't sleep on UVA, still undefeated in the conference. Don't sleep on.
That's true, and I'm not going to sleep on UVA. That's a good point, because Tony Elliott has done a really good job at UVA. He has done a really good job.
They've already lost to an ACC team this year, but it didn't count as a conference game. That's the weirdest. College football is so weird. They literally lost to NC State, but they're undefeated in the conference because that wasn't considered a conference game. That's crazy.
Yeah, it looked like SMU blew out Stanford, or they're at least blowing out Stanford right now.
Recovered the onside kick, so Pitt's got the ball.
Yeah, more than likely Pitt's going to win the game then, because the time is going to run out. All they got to do is snap it a couple times, and I don't know how many timeouts Florida State has left.
Only one.
But Miami's schedule is not. They're in a bye this week, and they should play next week. And when they come back and play next week, they're going to end up playing Louisville at home. So that'll be a test game for them. But I don't think Louisville is going to go up in there and do anything that Miami's going to get that handled, I believe, next week.
Louisville's offensive line is really bad.
Yeah, and can you imagine?
Really good.
Can you imagine Ruben Bain and those guys and Mesidor and all those guys on defense? They're gonna be hungry next weekend. I'm telling you.
Good luck, Louisville. Good luck.
Exactly. So here's a bit of news for you. Bill Belichick. There's been kind of rumors swirling that he might not finish the year. Do you think he might not finish the year, or do you think he'll walk away, like a lot of people are saying that he might?
I think that if he has any shame, that he will. This thing has been an absolute disaster. Like, there are reports in the media this week. 1, that got hit with some recruiting violations this week. 2, there's already reports that he's been a bit detached from the staff, and staff can't reach out to him or can't get in touch with him. There are reports from G5 teams that say that Bill Belichick and them were in the market severely overpaying for what were not the best players. And then there are other reports from Power 4 teams that were saying that they have players on the roster that UNC was also going after, and UNC was somehow underbidding them. Like, it is a privilege to come play for Bill Belichick, so I'm going to pay you less than what you're worth.
Wow.
Nothing is going right for that program. They are an embarrassment. They had Ludacris perform at halftime of the Clemson game. They were in a primetime slot because Bill Belichick is their coach, and they gave up 28 points in the first quarter to a team that hadn't scored 28 points in a game all season. After the Ludacris concert, the stadium was empty. Like, it was.
I saw that. The stadium looked like a ghost town. Everybody bailed out on them.
This could not have gone much worse. I don't think anybody expected Bill Belichick and UNC to somehow come out there and win the ACC. But even UNC had I went to Duke for law school, so I'm very familiar with the UNC football program. And UNC is a team that's going to go out there and give you 6-6 and the occasional 9-3. And they don't really ever spend money at the top level because obviously they're spending money on basketball. Well, they ponied up some money to get Bill Belichick. They ponied up a bigger NIL war chest than they've ever had at UNC for Bill Belichick outside of his own pay. They hired all the people they want on the staff. They put his son on the staff. They put the GM's son on the staff. They went all out for this candidate, and it's just been an absolute mess. I think that when you're 5 weeks into your season, you already got stuff out there about what your buyout is and whether or not you'll walk away from the job. That's a bad sign. And I would imagine before the season ends, I think Bill Belichick's going to be out of there.
I agree with you. I think he's going to take a walk.
Enjoying this? Is he like? What are the chances that he's enjoying his life right now and enjoys the job that he wakes up to do every day? It's very. It don't look like anybody's having fun in that program. And damn sure not the fans.
That's right.
I don't know.
I've said all along that Belichick don't want to put in the footwork for this particular job. I mean, I don't see him motivated to want to go to these kids and recruit these kids, and you barely can get him to say anything at a press conference. So how can he comes up in somebody's living room and convince a young man and his family that he'll take care of that young man and he'll help that young man have an opportunity to get to the NFL? I don't see it. So I don't think he's going to make it either. I really don't. So
this has gone bad. And there were people, if you remember, there were big fights between the booster base at UNC because a lot of people were not on board with this hire for that specific reason. How motivated this guy to go out there in the sticks of North Carolina and the sticks of South Carolina and be at a random high school on a Friday night watching guys, watching a 3-star guard, watching a 3-star tackle, watching a 3-star wide receiver, trying to see if he's got the upside to come play for UNC. That's not a glamorous life. This is not the part that the fans hear about, but it's not glamorous to be a head coach going into 20 living rooms knowing that you're only going to get 5 of the kids. It's not glamorous. It's not fun. It is the job. It's a grind. And this man's 73 years old. Even the most motivated 73-year-old might not be fit for the job, let alone one that's got his personal life in the news. It just looks a complete mess. Everything looks poorly planned. Your personal life is dominating the headlines more than the football, and the football you look like the worst P4 team in the country. It's not good. That's good.
Absolutely. We'll definitely follow up on Belichick in the future shows that we're going to be doing, but it looks like this game is getting ready to start. So TJ and I, we're going to come back after the game and we're going to do a recap. It looks like.
I'll pray for you. Pray for me.
Absolutely. We'll do a recap there after this game and we'll go over some things and we'll see you back then. So make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and be on the lookout for TJ and I to come back after this game is over. So we'll do it again soon. Take care. Peace, love, and prosperity. Take care.